Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Max Igan. It's a pleasure to be here again. I have rather a large show for you tonight, so I'll get straight into it. This show consists of another pre-recording, I'm afraid, so there will be no phone calls during the show. It was conducted last week. It's an interview that I did with a man called David Icke. I'm sure many of you have heard of David Icke. You can visit his website at davidicke.com. That's I-C-K-E, davidicke.com. I'm sure many of you have read many of his numerous books, seen many of his interviews, or perhaps even attended some of the lectures he gives. David has been exposing the New World Order, and he's sort of been pretty much a barometer of its progress for the last 20 years. He's a very informed individual. So without further ado, I will play the interview. It is quite lengthy, so I'll play it for you now. This was conducted on Wednesday last week, and so here is myself and David Icke. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Max.
You're in Australia. How are you finding the country, mate?
Well, I've been to Australia a few times. I love it. I've been all over it. I've spoken years ago in Brisbane, in Newcastle, in Adelaide, Perth, Sydney, and Melbourne. But in those days, filling a phone box sometimes was a struggle because people were not really interested in this information. And nowadays, anywhere in the world, it's completely changed. I mean, the tickets for Melbourne this time were gone, 1,500 a couple of weeks ago, because people are now beginning to see that the world is not like they thought it was, especially with current events economically.
Oh, absolutely, mate, and politically as well. I mean, it's interesting to see Obama going around the world sort of sprouting his rhetoric. He seems to be going around the world promoting globalism, much the way Al Gore went and promoted global warming.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Max, that the penny starts to drop. I mean, I've been researching this for 20 years, and the penny starts to drop when you stop seeing politics as sides, and you see it as different masks on the same face. I came up with a phrase years ago for the major, never mind one of the major mass manipulation technique that is used upon the global population every day, and I called it problem, reaction, solution. And it works like this. You want to change society in a way that you know that if you announce openly what you want to do, you're going to get a massive reaction against it from the public. So you don't do that. You don't announce it openly. You play problem, reaction, solution. Stage one, you create a problem covertly. You blame someone else for it or something else for it. It could be a credit crunch. It could be a war. It could be a terrorist attack, whatever. You then tell the public through an unquestioning mainstream media the version of that problem that you want them to believe. And what you're looking at stage two is the reaction from the public, fear, outrage, and basically do something. This can't go on. And then you can then openly go to stage three, which is to offer the solution in changes in legislation, etc., solution to the problems that you have covertly created, and thus you change society in a way that you would have got massive resistance for without the problem, in a way that people say, well, this is the only way, or something must be done. We don't like it, but something has to be done about this situation. And talking of Obama, what we're looking at here is a presidential version of problem, reaction, solution. You had the Bush regime go in under the heading of Republican, and their job was to create the problems. So they went on their foreign wars in Iraq and Afghanistan on the back of an allegedly terrorist attack by 19 hijackers who couldn't fly Cessnas but somehow manifested the ability to fly wide-body jets in ways that were fantastic. Even professional pilots will tell you that. That's a nonsense. But that was a problem, 9/11, which allowed them to offer the solution, which was the invasion of Iraq on the back of that, in effect, but certainly the invasion of Afghanistan, and the war on terrorism, which has allowed them to justify taking basic freedoms away and introduce more and more this global Orwellian state. So the Bush regime went in there and they created all those problems. What's happened now is the guy with the smile who seems hardly able to say anything unless the teleprompter's running. That's why when you see him speak in any public situation, he's looking right, he's looking left, he's looking right, he's looking left, because he's just looking at teleprompter screens for words that someone else has written for him. He's a used car salesman. His job is to go in on the back of the Bush-created problems and offer the solutions. And these solutions are, you're absolutely right, to push on an agenda for more and more centralization of power. And they're using this manufactured global economic crisis to change the architecture, as they call it, not only of the way finance is controlled in the world. They want a world central bank dictating all global finance, but also giving more and more power centrally to political bodies like the European Union and the other unions around the world that they want to create, like the Asia-Pacific Union, which will involve Australia and New Zealand, and also the North American Union, which is very close to being announced. The European Union style absorption of Canada, America, and Mexico in terms of one currency and centralized political control.
Yeah, well, it's just getting, it's almost too blatant now the way they're doing it. I mean, I actually saw in the G20 summit where they virtually announced the New World Order. Obama, in a speech in Prague the other day, said that what we need is a global regime, which I found a little bit blatant. So it's almost, well, I don't know how people aren't seeing this, but I think more and more people are actually waking up all the time.
Yeah, the thing is, it's very simple when you look at it in terms of what's happening. There are coordinates, and the three coordinates are, or the two coordinates, but they break down in three parts. The two coordinates are where do they want to take the world, and secondly, what are the techniques used to take us there? So, first of all, where do they want to take the world? If you are a few and you want to control the many, and that's what this network of families and this network of secret societies, this global network want to do. They want to centralize control of every man, woman, and child on the planet. And to do that, you have to centralize decision-making. Clearly, the more people who are making decisions about our lives, the less control any central few can have, because there's just too many points of decision-making. So what you want is more and more centralization of power, so that with every step, fewer people are making decisions that affect more and more people. And that's why we've had this incessant centralization of power through the last, particularly 200 years. But if you follow it back, it's been going on for thousands of years in stages. Because the more you centralize power, the more power the few have over the many. And it's gone so far now, Max, of course, that we've actually got a name for it. It's called globalization. And I do have to shake my head sometimes when I see people who call themselves of the left in politics, who go out with banners protesting against globalization, and then dismiss and ridicule people like me who say, hey, globalization is the centralization of global power that I've been talking about all these years. It's not, they think it's greedy corporations seeking to have more and more power and more wealth. What they don't realize is the corporations are not the origin or the engine of this centralization we call globalization. They are a vehicle for it. And in the end, because of this structure they have of pyramids within pyramids, like Russian dolls, one doll inside a bigger doll inside a bigger doll, these pyramid organizations, and virtually every organization on the planet today is a pyramid where you've got the few at the top who know what the organization's really about, and the rest of the people know less and less and less as you go down the pyramid. Corporations are, in of themselves, of course, pyramids in the way they're structured, and they go into a bigger pyramid and a bigger pyramid until you've got one that encapsulates the whole of the transnational global corporations. We can see it blatantly with things like the oil cartel, where they just put the price up in turn, and it's all coordinated between the oil companies. But that's just one level of it. All the corporations operate like that, and in the end, all the corporations are controlled by the same force.